I want everybody to get involved. So I'm going to turn around and look at you and go, well, what would you do? Is there some place that you would go with this? So where I thought we would focus with Ricky today is focus on an iron fitting. We always see driver fittings. Everybody's trying to hit it far. So most of you probably know how to chase that piece just a little bit. We're going to go a little bit more iron fitting, and I'm really curious to see what all of you do when it comes to fitting. Do you do it for just your players? Do you do it at all? Do you do it for the public? Are you in a public facility? You're indoors? What's going on? So how many of you here now do currently fit? How many of you are teaching? How many of you are fitting only your students? How many of you are fitting mostly non-students? So kind of a mix in between, right? And hopefully they, if you've portrayed yourself well and had the right information, chances are is they could very likely also become a student. I know that we've gotten quite a few because of that. So use club fitting as a way to build your reputation of somebody who cares that their student is getting everything that they want to get. We've always had a motto that we fit golf clubs, we don't sell golf clubs. So most of the contracts that we've ever had set up at the places that I know that I've been, I've purposely left all club sales out. And some people go, well, aren't you losing money? No, I'm still getting paid a fitting fee, so we still get that. I just wanted to make sure that people never showed up and ever would worry that I was doing what I was doing because I was trying to sell them something. So I would urge most of you maybe start with it that way, and then you'll move like now we're in a contract where we actually do get paid on club sales. But I think we've also got a staff that we can trust is doing everything always for the right reason. So the way that I would start an iron fitting, if Ricky walked into my door, first thing I would ask him is, well, skill level things. What's your handicap? What kind of scores do you normally shoot? What are you trying to do with your game?
I'm a scratch golfer, around low 70s, mid 70s. Just trying to consistently score well. That's my main goal.
Is there a long-term goal? Like, what do you want to do with the game?
Definitely be able to play with members personally. They ask me to go out and play with them at better score because that's what they want to see.
What about competing on your own, like as far as tournaments and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely competing. Competition is very important, I think, and definitely competing against other PGA members in the section is really important too.
So I think kind of like the same way that you would conduct a normal lesson where you're trying to figure out why they're there, what their goals are, and maybe kind of what's bothering them. Now, because we're going to focus on the iron fitting, I am going to specifically ask them. Normally we would have his clubs here. I would measure everything I could measure first. I'm not going to take his word for it, okay? I found that most people think they know their specs. They do not know their specs. So have just enough tools there so that you can go double check them. That could be part of the issue. They thought that they were supposed to be here and they really thought that they were there, but the reality is they're here, and maybe that is one of the simple reasons of why they're struggling. It doesn't always have to be complicated, okay? So Ricky's currently playing a set of Mura irons with Dynamic Gold S400s in them. So now one of the questions I would ask is, were you fit for those clubs? Okay. How did you come about them?
I found a seller and they said he sold it to me.
What made you jump on those particular brands or that shaft?
Honestly, looks really. I personally like the black on black look. That's what really got me towards them.
Got it. So more aesthetic stuff, not necessarily because you hit them and they perform better than anything else. Right.
Correct.
Usually if somebody's walking into my door, I've either had a conversation with them or they already know that this is going to be a bit of an open kind of look at what's going on there. Not very often do we have people come in specifically brand focused. It does happen on occasion. I will ask that question, or do you have anything specific you're looking for? If they go, yeah, I want to try those, whatever it was, my next question is simply, are you okay trying other stuff? If we find something that just absolutely performs better than everything else, are you good with that? 99% of the time they say yes. And the other 1% of the time, the fitting's probably not going to go very well. So we're gonna let Ricky jump in here right quick. Those of you that have that TrackMan app, if you want to see numbers, to be honest with you, I don't really start looking at a whole bunch of numbers until I get into more of that club head focused part of the fitting. So I can't remember who was talking this morning about the steering wheel on the car. That's kind of the way we think about a golf club. The shaft is the steering wheel of the car. Everybody's always heard that the shaft is the engine of the car. No, it's not. Shaft is the steering wheel. It's the one that tells the car where to go. The engine is the club head. That has to do with the center of gravity, size of the head, sole design, loft, all those good things. All right, Ricky, we're going to hit it. You can move that tee out of the way if you want. This red pole on the right, yellow pole on the right. Now, is there a preferred shot shape?
Draw.
Draw. What about trajectory?
Try to keep it flighted.
Do you think you're there now, or do you want it more flighted?
I think at times I could be there, yeah, but I want it more flighted.
And you like where your draw is now, or do you want more of that, or less of it?
I think it's good where it's at.
Got it. Okay. So based on what I'm hearing already, Ricky might not even come in my door for the club fitting. Sounds like he's got things where he wants them. I'm not sure what his definition of flighted draw is, but that looked flighty and it looked like it was drawing. A couple more there. Do you ever change shot shape?
Yes, all the time.
Okay. So later on, as we kind of get into it, I'll watch him hit a few shots. I will ask him to hit some of those other ones just to see if there's one that maybe is difficult. How many of you are on the TrackMan app right now? I don't get on there as a viewer very often, but if you could go into the settings, put there's a little wheel at the bottom left. Once you start it, you'll connect as a viewer. Go to the little wheel on the bottom left. Make sure you move the ball to hard. Carry on, Ricky. Fades. Let's see. So another question I ask is, are you happy with the distance you currently hit your clubs, or are you looking for more out of them?
No, I'm good.
Not very often does somebody come in saying, I want to hit them shorter. Usually it's the other way around. Can you get that golf ball starting a little farther left for me?
Yeah.
Can you make it go higher when you need to?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. Not uncommon when you first hear somebody try to hit one higher, that first one's always just a little bit heavy, kind of drop kicky. And then the good players usually figure that out on the second and third one. Does anybody else ask any other questions than those? Jim?
Hey, Pro, is there a password for the track?
Password.
Easy enough, thank you.
Now, this is more of a throw it out there question. If I give somebody a shaft that is in theory too weak, too soft, what's one of the first shots that they're going to hit with it?
Hook. Depends.
So I heard high. I heard hook. Can you tell me why? I'm not trying to point you out, but I want to know why.
The shaft should deflect more.
Why would it deflect more if it's soft?
The only thing I can say is just because the tip is softer, so it should.
So that'll go against the laws of physics. When something's soft, it does not want to catch up. So So the first one for your memory banks is, if it's too soft, it is going to resist trying to straighten back out. If it resists trying to straighten back out, what's it going to do to the club face? It's going to make it go right. It's going to have a tendency to be slightly low launches, and right starting lines. Now, the one where you see people that develop that hook with a club that you know is too soft is because they've trained themselves to react to it.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's what you have to be very careful of when you get good players in front of you. They are geniuses at reacting, whether you like it or not. Okay? First shot that I usually, when I change a shaft for somebody, the first one, I'm usually not really looking at that one too much. Especially if I'm starting to change balance points of the shaft, that will completely throw their rhythm and their timing off. The second one I'm starting to look at. The third one, how much different was it than the second one? I'm trying to not ever let them get too far past that third one. Because if I let them get past the third one and they're a good player, they're still going to find a way to make the ball do what they want. The player will also tell you, if you get a good player in front of you, they can tell when something's mistimed. They can tell when something's not where it's supposed to be. So if a good player, you hand them a club, they hit a shot, and they can tell that it's mistimed to a point that they don't like it, don't be shocked when they hand it right back to you, because they will. Now, you can ask them, hey, what did you feel? You can start seeing if it makes sense to what was going on, okay? Ricky, have you had any thoughts to his clubs lately, or no? You happy with what you got?
Being driver. I'm interested in that.
What's lying to look at your clubs? Ricky doesn't have his clubs here, otherwise we
Yeah. I believe those should be all standard.
all standard.
Correct.
What does standard mean?
Doesn't mean anything.
So as a teacher, and I'll tell you, I mean I teach far more than I club fit, but club fitting for me became a bit of a, I don't want to say a passion. I was, for those of you that want to know the story later, I'll tell you the story. But it was more because I had some club fittings whenever I was younger that completely took me the wrong way. And then I didn't really have anybody that, when I'd ask that question of, well, why did this happen? They didn't have an answer. So I started chasing club fitting as a selfish reason. And then I started noticing that I could use club fitting to either affect or long-term get a player to change some dynamics in their golf swing. Kind of like I was saying, if the club's too soft. So if you've got somebody that's continually kind of getting out there like this and they're a decent player, they're adding a little bit too much loft to it, I'm actually trying not to do anything to make that golf ball corrected. If anything, I want to almost make it do more of that, at least initially, to see if they can come up with the proper reaction to make it go the other way, because that's the direction they wanted to go anyway. Okay? So try not to look at anything that I give you other than you look down at it. We're just going to watch the reaction of some of these shafts. So for those of you that don't have fitting equipment, get involved with whatever company you want and get just enough of a matrix so that you have some options that you can start putting in people's hands. You don't have to know all the kick points of the shafts and what this does. Good old-fashioned way of you put it in front and put it in their hand. Watch what happens, see how they react. If you want to take some video, see how they react, go for it. You will figure it out. Use yourselves as guinea pigs first. Go ahead, Ricky. Now, don't mistake, I'm not handing him a club that I thought was going to be good. I'm going to hand him clubs so that you can see the initial effect of what happens, and then let's see what Ricky does to try and fix it. So he's already made a correction. I'll go ahead and tell you, I handed him a shaft that's so soft in the handle that there was no way he was going to be able to catch that one up with his normal golf swing. That's what happened on the first one. The second one was him probably sensing some sort of timing change, and he's already made an adjustment to it. And then it just becomes, did he make the adjustment that we like? Did we see the right stuff out of the ball flight? I don't like it, but I'm going to let him hit one more, just to torture him. So again, by the third one, Ricky's tried to find a way to at least get that golf ball back into a playable place that he likes it. And then again, it's just back to the question. Did you like the way that felt? What did you have to do to try and get it timed up?
Really try to hit down on it.
Yeah, you had to change it, right? So this is a timing game. For all of you that have, all the guys in the back that have been teaching for a long time, at the end of the day, the biggest thing we are affecting for a player, as much as some coaches think, oh, let's do this so we can get rid of this timing issue. Sorry, timing is the game. That's what we're using the golf club for. So we can do it with flex. We can do it with weight. Weight can be overall. Weight can be concentrated to the head. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. And then now, let's see what he does with this one. How many of you have actually spent time and gone through club fittings yourself? That is not near enough hands up. Now, some shafts do cater themselves more and less to ball curving more and ball curving less. I'm not going to get into the scientific reasons of why. They just have that effect, okay? The one that I gave him here is going to be one that's pretty firm. Quite honestly, he may not like it because he's going to start seeing launch angles go up too high. But this one, for the most part, is going to start minimizing curve. If he does anything with this, because it's firmer, it's going to start going high and probably left. And you don't want it going any more left, correct?
Correct.
Some that's firmer is high left.
Typically, there's always outliers. But that's just kind of a good way to kind of think of in your head as a start. So you can see already, though, that he didn't require the same drastic adjustments on this one that he did on the first one. Now we go back to the other question. How'd that one feel?
A little better than the last one.
Did you like the way that took off?
Yeah. But yeah.
So when I'm doing it, I'll usually take this one out, I'll throw it to the side and keep it in what I call a good pile. Okay? Bad piles, well, they end up in bad piles. And then throw away. So jump in there, start testing stuff, change everything that you can. Obviously we got a bunch of ping stuff here today, but when we're doing fittings, we've got everything there. If I were to give you another piece of advice, it would be, sure, you can have your own personal attachments to a company. Be brand agnostic as much as you can. You got to have something out there as options.
Can you explain about anything named AMT?
Ascending mass technology is just where they change the weight in the shaft as it goes from short iron to long iron. It's something that I think Ping's been doing for years. So it's not new technology, they were just using it. When they do that, typically when you lighten a shaft, because they're using less material, by definition it's also going to be typically a little softer. So they were trying to actually change not only the weight in that set, they were trying to have a more drastic change of stiff in the short to soft in the long irons. Again, they're trying to change trajectories. I have not had very good luck with that shaft. because people start changing the directions as they move through the bag. Now, there's some of that that's normal, and for those of you that understand kind of D-plane stuff, there's some natural changes in ball flights through the set anyway, but that one was a little bit too drastic. So it does fit some people, but I'd say it's probably, I think if I fit one a month into it, it's probably a lot. Just think about that.
It's very light.
Very light. All right, let's have some fun with it. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Could you comment on each shaft that you're, I mean, I know you talked about softer and stiffer. You want to tell us LZ versus
Again, because it's one of those things where I think we can go through that information, and if anybody wants to know it, feel free. I mean, Jim does a lot of club fittings himself. Reach out to somebody if you want to know more about the technical aspects. I don't think it's that important. I think you need to have enough in front of you, have enough of your teacher and observation eyes going on, and you'll figure out what's going to work for them. When I get these shafts into a good pile, we'll always come back through them, and there'll always be one or two that continually just get hit well. Okay? Once we find that, then I usually gravitate into some more club head stuff.
Alan, you always do shaft first, don't you?
Always shaft first.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
So-
Now, I'll pick the club head. The only reason why I grabbed this particular club head is because it's the most similar to the one he was already playing.
Okay.
And I won't necessarily move him out of that unless we start looking at some ball flight numbers later when we get the shaft done and there's something that we don't like. Also, for those of you that are working with those good players, so all the tour coaches out here can tell you, it's very seldom that those elite players are changing shafts in their irons. It hardly ever happens. I mean, like there's guys that have been using, and girls, that have been using the same shafts for 15, 20, 25 years. The only time that they really need to probably address major shaft changes in any of their clubs, but especially the irons, is if they've also gone through swing changes. If they like their patterns and they like where everything's kind of going there, don't mess it up by introducing a new shaft that you think is better, because at the end of the day, they're good players for a reason, because they've made the ball already start to do what they want to. Okay? You can make a new line there too if you care. Now, I will tell you that I handed them this shaft for a specific reason. What did that one feel weight-wise?
Lighter.
What about compared to the last one?
Heavier than the last one.
Heavier than the last one. It's actually about 20 grams lighter.
Increases the swing weight.
It's because it's a balance point of the shaft. It changes where the weight feels, okay? So because this one is lighter, but it's actually kind of more old-fashioned dynamic gold, heavier through the bottom, he can still feel the head. The one that he had before that got a little bit more counterbalance, not counterbalance, but just more that way. All of a sudden he lost sensation of where the head was. That's what he's feeling. That's information for me now. So sometimes I will throw shafts in there that I know are wrong as a bit of a control factor, to see if my brain was going the right way, to see if I'm picking up his reactions and his feels correctly. I'll move that direction. So it's actually not the overall weight that he was feeling. He has more sensitivity to the end of the golf course. Perfect. I'm going to use that later on, possibly. Now here's a combination on this shaft, and this is where it's always about the combos, okay? This shaft is actually softer, but is being counteracted, not counterbalanced, counteracted because it's lighter. So it's playing stiffer because it's lighter. So if I gave him something that was heavier and weak, it's gonna have a right going right. If I give him something that's super stiff and super light, it's probably gonna be left going left, or some really varying contact. Contact's probably one of the first things that you can pay attention to, especially if you're lucky enough to have those good players in front of you. What other questions would you can keep hitting, Reed? What other questions would y'all ask if you were in a fitting? Okay, now let's hit some of those other curves.
What bag makeup would you want? Like at the top end, hybrid, long irons.
Yep. Yeah, you want to start kind of getting some information on maybe everybody's got some sort of scar tissue with a certain type of golf club. You know, some people hate fairway woods. Some people are just completely adamant they don't want a hybrid. Okay. Start gathering some of that information, especially if you're doing a full bag fitting. Now, most of the time, if somebody comes in just for an iron fitting, that's not a student. I'm still looking at every other club in their bag. I'm trying to figure out, is this really an iron issue, or is it the fact that it's just very, very different from the other stuff in their bag? Like, what's going on there? So between those few shafts that we've hit already, I haven't even put your own shaft in here. I don't think we have it in here. Which one of those feels like you can do what you want to do with it? The first one? Even though the trajectory was a little bit higher?
Yeah.
So then we might go back to it, and I might say, because he was talking about that flighty shaft, or that flighty shot. So I'll throw that one back in there, back in front of him, to start recognizing if he can still do what he wants to do with it. So the test for this one would be is, can he still hit that down flighty shot? Yes. Okay, give me a cut with that one now. What are his club head speeds, by the way? Anybody looking at that?
High 90s.
So high speed guy. Doesn't look that fast to me, but it means he's got some pretty good rhythm there, right? Now you noticing that that one, just by and large, has a little bit less curve? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah. So if you had the capability, and I don't either, of being able to hand him some other clubs, whether it be a 4-iron or a 3-iron or whatever that long club might be, it'd be a good time to test it. Any short irons would be a good time to test it. Hit if you want.
Alan, do you consider manipulating the loft weaker strong?
That's a good question. So most of the companies now have some sort of offering that is stronger. So, you know, Ping calls it power spec. Titleist is now making their T100 in a stronger version, just so that the bounce is not messed with. That's usually going to fit, when you're needing to do that, it's usually trying to fit that high spin gap. I will tell you that when it comes to changing launch and spin, I've had far greater success and seen it done faster by changing loft and the type of club head, not by changing shaft. Again, I'm using the shaft as a bit of a steering wheel. So if he can show me that he can control overall flight, direction of curve, striking it solid, well then if I need to somehow get rid of some spin because maybe it's just a little bit too spinny, well then I'll strengthen it because the other stuff is so good. So now let's change some club heads. What are launch and spin numbers there?
Anywhere from 15 to 16 in the 7,000s, mid 7,000s, and then the low ones will get an occasional 65.
So it's also very, very common that as you get people with high speed, they're going to spin it. Speed goes with spin, unless they're just that good at managing off the bottom, which they probably are. Let's have some fun with this one.
What do you have with all
Hard.
hard?
And that's more of a guess. I've never really messed much with this ball, but most of the time your normal range balls like this are going to be in that hard setting, unless they're a limited flight ball.
Hey,
I don't think so. Do you have? Did you click normalize? See what it changes it to if you put it on that hard ball.
It's locked.
I think I've got it on normalize already, so maybe y'all are seeing the numbers and I'm seeing it. Did that do what you thought it would do?
No.
Well, that makes sense to me. Why is that? He said it was 1,000 less.
It's a distance club.
It's 1,000 less RPM to spin. You just read there.
Yeah.
Why is that?
6,000.
It's lower loft.
It's lower loft and center of gravity is very, very different. So center of gravity is deep, deep, deep. Now, typically when we see that, we also see the launch angles go up quite a bit. All right. So the one thing that I'll also tell you, be careful of just handing these so-called distance clubs to people at your club that don't carry enough speed. That sounds crazy, but if they don't have enough speed to create spin to get the ball in the air and keep it in the air, these distance clubs are just longer across the ground, which that can be a benefit for some of them as well. Okay, for some it's just make the ball go farther. It doesn't matter how it goes farther, let's just make it go farther. What do you hear in the contact? Different sound, a little bit tingier. What about the strike?
Soul more interaction. Soul.
Sounds heavy to me. Sounds kind of heavy, chunky, which to me, sometimes I question what some of the manufacturers do. We get players in front of us, if we get those high handicappers, they're all getting the club slung out this way, right? Well, what's that do to the soul and the bounce of the golf club effectively? Increases more bounce. They can't get the leading edge underneath the equator of the ball to save their you-know-whats, okay? So be careful of these distance clubs with those low-speed players and, if you will, those kind of early throwers. And based on the club that he kind of came from, he's playing a mirror, which I'm assuming the one that I didn't see his clubs. Probably pretty thin-soled, a little bit more of kind of a blade sole. So you start handing Ricky a whole bunch of golf clubs with a big bottom and a lot of bounce on them, he's not going to be a client for very long.
Hey, Alan, going back to the shaft real quick, with the array of shaft options, do you even feel the need to hard step or soft step shafts anymore?
Yeah.
If so, when do you make that determination in the fitting?
Good question. So we're lucky enough, we've got quite a few, but if we get that player, because again, the way that shaft kind of deflects into the golf ball, it affects the way that the club's going to interact with the ground. So if I start handing somebody, no matter the speed, I'll go through both sides. If I hand them, let's just say an S300, and it just seems to me like there's a lot of kind of dig in there, there's not enough bounce going on. As soon as I hand them the X1, all of a sudden it seems like it's going completely the opposite way. Club's bottoming out a little bit too early. Well, that's probably a decent sign that there's a little bit of that in between the two. Yeah. Now, as a rule, I'm going as stiff as possible. Absolutely as stiff as they can handle. I want to go as stiff as they can somewhat load, because for most of the players that we're dealing with, they have a hard time getting the club face squared up. I'm doing everything I can do to help them get the club face squared up. Now, I think as a pattern, Chuck, Jim, you probably find that even on tour, even those guys and girls, they are always going to err to something that is firmer just to reduce play, because they know how to keep it off. Is that agreeable? Yeah. What do you think about this one? Ground contact between this one and the very first one I gave you.
A lot better than that one.
This one's better?
Yeah.
Better than the very first one? Not the black one.
Not the black ones? Oh no. Definitely like the very first one. Yeah.
First one. So the first one was just a little bit thinner soled. Again, probably leaning right back into where he was with his own clubs. And I'll say this, every company makes a club that's within that line most of the time. Let me see if I have. Okay, so we kind of have a decent shaft in mind for him here. We kind of know which direction he wants to go with the club head. Well, so now I'll start fine tuning some of this stuff with lie angles and things like that. He says his are standard.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed either. I'll jump in and get some video while I'm doing a club fitting as well, because again, I want to see how they deliver the golf course. What'd that one feel like?
A lot better.
So I went more upright. And don't get mistaken, most of the time, if I go too upright, it's just going to go left. Not necessarily. See what he does to react to it. Because I will tell you, to me, it sounds like it's probably going through the ground just a little bit better. So we've kind of twisted Ricky all up here. Completely changed the shaft that he was already playing with. I've gone a little bit more upright because if I'm not mistaken, Muir's standard's even flatter than Ping, so I've probably moved him 2 more degrees upright. Does not mean that that would be the end of it. I would try to go out. I would hit some different shots. I'd throw them in rough, uphill lies, downhill lies, you name it, bunker shots. Try to see what they're going to start doing to react to it. They'll tell you. Good players are either going to tell you or show you, and then you start changing and adjusting things and start doing some of the figure out what you can affect, because it's all doable. So if I gave Ricky a club that was super soft, maybe keep it really, really heavy on the bottom. First time he hits that a few times, it's going to go probably right. He's not going to be able to catch it up. So if I wanted to see Ricky actually being able to release it more, let's say he's one of my students, I want him to be able to let that thing out. Maybe he's kind of hanging on to it too much. I might give him that club, hey, let's just order one, and I want you to go practice with this for a few weeks. Let's see what happens. Let's make sure it doesn't have some crazy effect on your golf swing that we don't like, or better, does it have the effect on your golf swing that we want? Okay. Any other questions? Jim?
How much time do you allow for fitting?
So an iron fitting for us is usually going to be 45 minutes to an hour. We've always got those players that, I guess, kind of listening to Dr. Mitchell in there, they can't make a decision. They want to keep going back and forth. They want to keep going back and forth. That's fine. That's why we go ahead and allow that little bit of extra time for them to do that. And I'm always trying to do that inventory in the front for them. I want to find out what that shot is that they absolutely can't stand. And I'm going to try and make sure that I put them into that shot before they leave. If we can see progress in that shot, we haven't lost any of the other ability to hit the shots that they do like, well, in theory, we've possibly found something that's a better club. But don't ever be just hard set, oh yeah, this is the one. Yep.
Would you change anything that you've done in this lesson with Ricky, who's obviously a scratch player, or between your 10 to 15 handicappers, different age category, senior players, high school players, other than
No, the only difference is, like, when we get our juniors, so we're lucky enough, we've got quite a few high-level juniors that run through the club. This might sound kind of weird. We don't really overly fit to current ball flight for juniors. In other words, we're trying to make sure that we make sense of what we're putting in their hands. Does it fit kind of the developmental progress that we would like to see? And we'll go that route, but we're always very quick to say, hey, you know what, we need to make another adjustment into that. So no, overall, the way that you kind of saw it here, it looks a little bit more organized and probably processed than this, but it kind of looks the same.
Okay.
You talked about the club going through the ground. What is your go-to when you're dealing with mats?
So we're at an indoor-outdoor facility, so we have an indoor facility, but we get to watch the golf ball fly. I do most of the shaft work indoors on the mat just to create some control factor of contact. I can kind of hear a little bit differently what's going on there. As soon as we get in the club head though, I'm outside. I think indoor fittings are very difficult. We have any indoor fitters here? How do y'all do?
I mean, on ours, we typically go through club heads first, but that's kind of our model, you know. And I mean, I would definitely say it's interesting to do shaft first. But you know, dealing with somebody or manufacturers who don't have shafts based on what your fitting part is giving you, you know, it's kind of hard to determine what shaft they're going to be going for based on, okay, does Mizuno have more, does TaylorMade not have that shaft, you know, but they hit that head a little bit better. So we would go head first and then kind of pick the shaft after that.
Is there a reason why? Why does it look that way?
I'm honestly not really sure. Yeah, I wouldn't really know why. I think more of a kind of wow factor. This is the head, what it looks like, you know.
Sure.
Shafts aren't as exciting because people don't know about them. So I guess that would be but I'm not.
Yep.
Not really sure it's the right or wrong way.
So everybody that was indoors, is everybody golf tech?
Yeah.
How do you do?
I'm Paul. I do studio fitting at PGA Tour Superstore in Austin. This is something I came up with on my own for turf interaction, what Alan's talking about. I take the driver tape and I turn it sideways and wrap it around the sole. And then I look at how dark the marks are on the back of the sole. So that shows interaction. So you'll definitely find that there are some irons, and when they're close, that you can say, well, which iron is going to be better than another, is the least amount of sole interaction at the back of the club head is going to be going through the turf in a much better way. And obviously with each company having a different design sole, like Srixon has a V-sole, so they actually lift the back part out of the way, so even their distance irons are like almost blade-like. So you can clearly see that, and I just literally take the stickers off and line them up next to each other, and I say which one has the least amount of interaction or darkness, right, the dark at the back of the sole. And that has never proved wrong. I haven't had a club come back because of that.
Now for juniors, I will say this. I'm hardly ever putting a junior in anything more game improvement. Everybody here familiar with the ping line? I'm usually not going anything more game improvement than the 210. Again, for us, we've got a lot of juniors that are trying to be really good players. I don't want the club to do all of the work. I want them to start learning some of how to strike it. I want them to start learning how to use this old golf club a little bit different. I'll probably gravitate to, not with all the juniors, but I don't mind having a junior in a golf club that has a tendency to probably just a little bit heavier. I know that kind of bucks the trend of the industry.
How much of your teaching hat do you put on whenever you're working with someone? Like if you have a new student you've never worked with, they come out to get fit and the setup's terrible, is that the first thing you look at before the club? Or
not necessarily. So when I say that the teaching hat's on, I think it was James Lights that I heard once said, every lesson he has, he's club fitting, and every club fitting he has, he's teaching. In other words, you got to use both brains so that you can make sense of it, because, no offense, he doesn't know. He does not know. He's come in, he knows what he wants, he knows a couple of things that he doesn't like, but the reason why that they're in front of you is because they have not figured it out yet. So use both sides of that brain. I think that, you know, selfishly, I'm probably biased to it. I've always been into the club fitting side. I think club fitting made me a better teacher, and being a better teacher made me a better club fitter. They have to go together. Anything else? Does this look crazy different than what you would have already done on your own? Neil, Jim, Brian? You guys do a lot of club fitting, don't you? I know Jim does.
I sent mine to Trevor.
Send them all to Trevor?
I do, yeah, sadly.
I think Trevor does a good job, especially when he gets some of those, probably more of those high-speed guys. Trevor's a long drive guy himself, but if you've got your normal clientele at your club, there's no reason why you should not be doing this on your own. Okay? I've preached this to the manufacturers and to everybody in our section. The best way to get yourself educated on club fitting is to jump in and do it. Use yourself as the guinea pig first, okay? Ping is one of the best engineering companies. Again, I'm gonna be biased. I think they are the best engineering company in golf ever because they open their eyes up. They don't want to leave any stone unturned. But the fact that they're telling us how to fit our students, I think is backwards. I think we go to them, and I think that's why we see guys like, Ping smart enough now. They've got guys like Chuck on their staff because they're trying to make sure that they can integrate what is the teacher wanting versus what can our equipment do. So you heard them talking about the ball dynamic fitting in there. You don't want to know why Ping did the ball dynamic fitting? It's very, very simple. They wanted to know what all those golf balls did to their golf clubs. And the good thing for them is they got all the information, now they're sharing it with us. So, jump in there. If you're with Titleist, fine, it's great, they make great equipment. Talk to Jason. Hey Jason, I just need, if they don't have the full matrix, hey Jason, I need 15 shafts. Give me half of them in this flex, half in that flex, maybe a couple of other over here. I need it just to go, I want to go test some stuff. Go out there, give it a go. See what you can mess up. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I can't tell you how many bad fittings I've done. But the beauty in doing one is I always leave that door open to them of, hey, if there's ever anything that you feel or notice in these clubs, please come back. Let me be the first one to know about it because, well, it's going to help me, and then I will help you figure out what needs to be adjusted and made better. So.
Can you tell us what's your final?
So the final one there was, and again, I hadn't dug, I'd be way more into the numbers. I'm trying to do a little bit more talking here. He is into the Ping I-59. So again, it's the new club. It replaced the iBlade. So it's going to be kind of your smaller, your thinner sole golf club. It's not a blade. It's still very, very forgiving. It's got a lot of perimeter weighting to it. Project X 6.5. Langle was blue dot, so that'd be 1 degree up for them. And I'm assuming that's about 2 degrees more upright than his current set. So again, I wish we had his clubs here. Another thing that I'll do a lot of times, especially for the better players, is as a control factor again, in between giving him one shaft, I'll hand him his own club mount. So we can start seeing what happens. They'll usually start fitting themselves after that because they'll go, oh yeah, that other one over there, man, that was way, way better. I could really do whatever that might be. Cool. Anything else? So I know you didn't get to see the whole elaborate thing that maybe I would normally do. I didn't want it to be that way. I want it to be us having some conversation. But the first thing that I would tell you is jump in there and try. Try. Everybody here that's not doing club fittings, you're not doing club fittings for probably one simple reason. I don't feel like I know enough. Or second reason, I'm scared to be wrong. You need both of them. Do it.
Grip size, obviously most of the shafts have grip on.
Grip size for me is always preference. There's always been, good question, Jim. There's always been, I think, a bit of a fallacy when it says that if a grip's too big, they can't release it, it goes to the right. If it's too small, they over-release it, goes. I've never seen any conclusive evidence, and I've never found that in any of my fittings. The one thing that I want them to be able to do is to feel like they can put their hands on there the way that they would like to. I'm not even going to tell them what their grip pressure is supposed to be, especially if it's a good player. My guess is they've probably got a lot of that figured out already. I want it to be comfortable for them first. So I've got people that come in with cadet small hands and they want to walk out with a jumbo grip. I don't care. Yeah. Yeah.
But do you think the bigger grip is better for like arthritic hands?
Typically, because they can't close their hands as much.
Okay.
And oddly enough, when you get those, there's a guy that I used to work with. Some of you probably know him. His name is Rick Opliger. Rick was a really good player, but he had the smallest, shortest, fattest fingers you'd ever seen. He literally could not make a fist. So technically, he should have been in a grip that was probably 2 times undersized, and he played mid-sized grips because he couldn't close his hands up. But yeah, that's arthritic grips. Commonly, you want them bigger, and you probably want them to have less taper.
And that goes with the putter grip as well. Or is that personal preference?
No, it has an effect. I think the size of the putter grip actually has way more effect on what a person does with a putter than it does rough.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm just going to throw this out there, and I'm kind of biased this way, but if you look at the putters, the putter grips on the greatest putters in history, very, very few of them are big. Very few. All right, no more questions.
Oh, thank you, Alan.
Just as a sidebar, our door is always open at Axis for anybody that ever wants to come out for shadowing, your own club fitting, your own lesson. I know all the teachers here would probably offer that same thing to you as far as we want you to be better, we want you to be more educated. Hopefully we can help that happen. So thank you. Thanks everybody for being here.
Let's give a big hand to Ricky too for the strike show.
Yeah,